Hey, welcome back. This is part 2 of episode 17, the Intelligent Idea Podcasters. Go ahead, D, lead it in.
Yeah. Okay, so minor book review. I don't have all the notes I originally wanted, but I just finished this audiobook, Sex at Dawn. It's written by Christopher Ryan and Casilda Jetha, right? And I originally heard about this on the Joe Rogan podcast. So he has Christopher Ryan on there every once in a while. He's had him on like 3 podcasts so far, and they're just on their Jones talking. You know how the podcasts go. Mm-hmm. But I just found it really fascinating because the guy is just like a trove of like information pertaining to prehistorical humanity, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's what this book is about. So I'm just gonna like read off a couple of points, right? That I pulled that I thought were really interesting, and I guess we could discuss them, right? So what we generally know, like I think it's pretty much general consensus now, is that humanity is around 200,000 years old in our current form, right? So 200,000 years old.
That's pretty old, yeah.
Right. And yet, agriculture, you know, one thing that we consider so integral to our worldview, to our world right now, is very recent in human history. And how, because of this, our biology, right, like our cultural constructs are established through agriculture, and how it's trickled down and created different various forms of cultures and rules we have in our world. And then yet that our biology has not caught up, right? And if it does catch up, it'll be very different than what the cultural norms would expect us to say, right? Or to expect us to be. So I just thought that was interesting. And that was a long-ass statement.
So wait, when you say not caught up to what? Like the food we consume?
More along the lines of our biology, right? The way, or our anatomy, like why we have brown skin, right? Or why we grow hair on our heads and not our, I don't know, something.
Kneecaps and stuff like that.
Kneecaps.
I guess some people have hairy kneecaps.
You know, but things like that, like our anatomy, the way we're built, like that's not reflected, or our agriculture doesn't reflect those changes. And this book particularly focuses on the sexual aspects of us, of our bodies, right? Like why we evolve the way we do sexually, and why men and women have particular desires, right?
That sounds pretty cool, man. That's awesome. You know, definitely with agriculture, I know you told us that the other night. I could not believe that, you know, agriculture itself was only, what'd you say, 5,500 years old or something like that?
Yeah, somewhere around that.
I was like, wow, we did, like, so people weren't growing grain? But I guess when I had looked it up and read it, like, they were saying that, you know, people hadn't, the act of agriculture was the basis for township and communities, right. And, you know, and I'm like, okay, well, that makes more sense. And when you were saying that, you know, people used to be
nomads,
exactly. You consume all the natural resources in one area, you move on to the next, you know. You can never stay still.
No one settled.
Right. No one settled until agriculture, so.
And but I couldn't believe that. Building the grain silos.
Couldn't, like, humans are how many years old, and we've only been growing shit for 5,000 years? Like
that's pretty amazing.
It is. It's freaking crazy. I'm like, so what the hell are we doing for the whole, you know, 60,000 years before that, or whatever it is, you know? It's crazy. Yeah, people just moving around.
I wonder what's next for us.
What is next, man?
I know, man.
We'll probably fed like, food intravenously.
So this is one thing I was thinking about.
It'll be like a food paste. Like, we won't need actual, like, bread and shit.
Was it Soylent Green?
I was going to say Soylent.
Yeah, Soylent. Like, that was the thing, you know? Yeah. Like, people creating these nutritious, goopy drinks.
Yeah, you'll get all your sustenance from that.
So this is
and you can work on
this is a nice segue, I guess. But have you guys ever heard of meal squares?
Meal squares? No.
Yeah, so... so Ellen and I, we tried meal squares not too long ago. It's similar to Soylent. Soylent is just like liquid base. Where meal squares, it's probably about, you know, like say 3 inches by 3 inches by about 1 inch, and it looks like a really dense ass brownie. And essentially, it's supposed to have like
Space
100% of nutrients that you need to make it through the day. 100% vitamin C, vitamin A, has like 20 grams of protein. And you're supposed to eat this 3 times a day.
Okay.
And it's supposed to be like super healthy. It's supposed to be like vegan. It's supposed to be like, there's everything you need. There's even like fat in there and oils and essentials, vitamin E and all this stuff.
Things your body needs to function.
And so I tried it. It's not bad. It was like a very dense brownie light. And brownie light, you know how you eat like foods, like diet foods, and there's a little like aftertaste. That's what it tastes like. It's like a brownie light. It wasn't bad. I tried it for like a week or so, and like.
Was your body functioning fine? Like,
It was fine. No, it was fine.
Did you have more energy?
It was fine. It was just lazy. I didn't have to cook or anything. It was I just ate that 3 times a day for about a week. It's okay. It got tiring after a while, but
Jay started mixing it up. He had to throw a barbecue sauce on one of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they say that
You dip that joint
they
ranch?
say you microwave it. So shout out to anyone who's still eating it out there. If you microwave it and add just a little bit of butter, it actually is not bad. It's pliable. But there's chocolate in there, and there's like nuts and stuff. So it's kind of like sweet a little bit.
Make it kind of try to be.
I wanted a little bit savory kind of thing, but I mean it's not bad.
Like they need different flavors.
Exactly. I can see like the future of humanity because of like starvation and because of famine and stuff. I can see them going towards that, but it's gonna be kind of boring, man.
Yeah.
Like
there's no spice to.
I mean, we have taste buds and we desire a variety of tastes. Just going back to biologically based on our anatomy, because we have tastes depending on what our bodies need. So we have cravings like that vary based upon what our body is looking for.
I need salty foods.
I need salt.
Maybe, yeah, exactly.
I need sugar because whatever reason, or I need a banana for potassium. Y'all know potassium, right? Or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's
Stuff
crazy.
like that, man.
Our body's a lot smarter than we give it credit for.
Yeah. But talking about like the future of humanity, then, so I remember I was listening to the podcast, the Joe Rogan podcast, and Chris Hitchens. He was talking about how, so you know how like locusts and grasshoppers,
Right.
So locusts are essentially grasshoppers. Like they're an
evolved version.
they're not necessarily evolved.
Mutated.
Yeah, like a mutated version of a grasshopper, right? And that mutation occurs when there's food restrictions, right? So when food is restricted, the next like in the area, and you have a family of grasshoppers or whatever, and they'll shift. Like the next generation of those grasshoppers, or maybe 2 generations down, will be locusts. So because of that food, an adaptation. And then they'll swarm, and then they'll go into an area. They'll be able to fly for mobility, which is an adaptation to get out of the area where they are. And then they'll swarm all in one large group, and then they'll consume every vegetation in that area because they've adapted to need food. So he was talking about, what if humans we've become locusts now?
Like that gene?
Right. Like, what if we have a trigger gene? And there's another animal that has a similar thing to that. It's the pig. Right? The pig in the natural environment, in a couple of generations, if you put a pig in an environment, it survives, right? This next couple of generations, it will be closer to a boar. Every generation will be closer to a boar. So eventually you have a tusked, hard-faced animal that will eat anything. Like, because they're omnivorous. And that's what they become in the next generations. So what if, since agriculture was the start of food restrictions, right? Before we settled down in one area and we started eating this particular thing these things that we grew, and it wasn't enough for everybody. The whole class system and all that stuff even diseases. All those are products of agriculture. The book talks about it. What if humans transferred into a locust like type where we live, we're existing in this society now. Everybody's working. Everybody needs to eat. But what we're doing is really we're destroying our environment.
I wonder what
so
that
we
trigger.
can eat.
That.
I wonder what that trigger is going to be.
What?
I'm just wondering. Like,
I think it already happened.
Yeah, like, do you give humans that much credit? Like agriculture. I mean, yeah, I guess, but it's like, are we going to be able to evolve to anything to adapt beyond this?
Not if we
or is
eat
it
our
like
world
doom and
right.
gloom?
Like
when we hit the
now?
fan, shit is going to hit the fan. Like
if we eat our world like we're doing now, I don't think so. Like that's why locusts don't stay locusts forever. They eventually go back because they eat fucking everything they can touch.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, like the next generations after they've swarmed for so long will be grasshoppers again.
Mm-hmm.
Because they just crushed everything they can have. And what if humans, like, we crush everything on this planet? Maybe global warming is part of that. I
We're
don't know,
doing a
whatever,
good job
but,
already.
right? You know, we crush everything on this planet.
Yeah, I'm sure doing a good
like
job.
a large population, it's just a matter of time. I keep saying that, John, but it's just a matter of time. And I don't want to be gloomy and stuff. This book isn't necessarily gloomy, but it's just a matter of time before there's mass starvation.
It's true.
Coastal-
Do the math.
Shifting,
That's eco capacity as well. Like
Right, exactly,
when you're in a
right.
pond and there's so
The
many
environment pushes
fishes,
back
right?
in a
Like
way.
you keep on multiplying. There's going to get to a point where there's not enough food to feed all the fishes. There's too much CO2 in the pond. There's more animals than there are plants, right?
And and then what's the next move? A new adaptation.
Right.
And
Disease,
disease.
famine, starvation.
That will push the population back down.
Yeah,
All right.
it will.
All right.
I
don't wanna be
mean,
gloomy and stuff. I was just thinking
we're getting
outside
there
of-
with
Yeah,
with
I
the
get
human
all sad and
population,
shit.
though.
I'm sorry. But but anyway, so another thing I want to talk about with this book.
But real quick, agriculture in particular, I think the earth, a lot of these countries have so much food producing. We can produce so much food. I mean, I think for any change for the human species to happen from agriculture would take a long time, right? I mean, we destroy food to keep the price of demand for food up.
So Juice and I were talking about this actually pre-podcast.
I mean, think about it. In the world, does there have to be any starvation?
No,
I wouldn't imagine so,
we produce more food than there
Yes, there
should
is.
be, right?
Yeah, and there is.
the fact
Why?
that major companies are paying farmers not to overproduce just so they can keep the prices where they are, that's bullshit. On top of that, like they're pushing things like corn and like everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? They can push for a lot better things. And also, we throw away a third of the food that is not used. Think about how much waste we throw, and yet there's starvation.
And that's just us.
That's just us, exactly. Also, if you look at the apples and look at the bananas and stuff that we actually see in the stores, those are the top like 3-4%, right? All the other bananas that didn't meet like the aesthetic pleasing appeal that we see as a banana are thrown.
Mm-hmm.
How much of that is waste? We could just donate that. We can just use that still.
could.
So, but it's just
So you gotta wonder.
ridiculous.
So what's the limit at what point humanity will hit that wall where we are using all of those things? Because right now humanity is the most populous creature on this planet. On this entire planet, there's more humans, right?
Agriculturally,
So
yeah. Well, I heard there's more bugs than humans, but that's okay.
it's okay.
maybe expedient into like global
just gonna keep
warming
reproducing.
might affect agriculture as well because you'll have so many areas that become unusable because of
Because
the
you
weather. You just can't grow stuff there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Absolutely, too hot, too dry.
Yeah,
you're
I
right.
could
That's
probably see
why-
agriculture doing it. Yeah.
Like, isn't that why?
But we have the capacity to produce so much. It's like we don't have to have starvation now. It's just
All right, so speaking of food, check out this segue right here. So you're talking about locusts earlier. They say that locust is actually the best meat like output for grain input. You know how you have to feed an animals a certain amount of grain and they produce a certain amount of meat or food back. Locust is actually the highest amount, like proportion, best bang for the buck. So really, if it ever came down to it, I believe that we would be eating more locusts.
don't people eat
Definitely.
locusts?
Yeah,
People like
some
go somewhere and get like a
cultures eat
bag of
locusts all the
locusts.
Actually, every
fried
like,
locusts?
a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
of
Bugs and stuff.
countries and cultures outside of the U.S. do, and
that's
it's
why-
a lot cheaper. It's a lot easier to produce meat.
But that's outside of agricultural like form, right?
Norms,
It's like
yeah.
your agricultural norms, or what you
have to.
consider normal,
You want
right?
to survive, you want to eat.
So people like when they were foraging, when they were hunter gatherers, they were going around, they were eating fucking anything and everything, right? Any and everything, whatever they could find, they ate, and they brought it back, and everybody shared, right? So going back to the book, I guess I want to get this main part, why the human testicles are shrinking. So that I found.
I mean, do I
fucking
want mine
fascinating.
to be any bigger? I like mine how they are. You know?
Well, I'm not talking about yours. What about your grandkids? Like
Are they gonna shrink?
every generation. Well, this is what the book presents, right? Every generation they're shrinking.
Why? What reason does it give?
Monogamy. So when we talk about so it all comes down to
You don't need to hold as much anymore.
I guess. Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess. Yeah. Pretty
Yeah, I
much.
mean, like you don't
Like you don't need to.
You're having one partner.
You have one partner, so your
Actually,
body every year your body
sense.
will adapt, right? Or not every year, but every
I
generation.
see that, but it's weird. I never thought about that.
But then here's the thing. So it's not about necessarily having more partners or more partners for a male.
Mm-hmm.
It's about sperm competition, right? It's about your sperm competing with other sperm from other males, right? And that's why our testicles and our penises are shaped the way they are, because it's a form of sperm. It's a form of making it so your sperm can impregnate the female over the next dude, right? So our bodies are biologically attuned to that form of competition. It also manifests in females in a way, like also our sexual desires. Like we're not. Our attraction for one woman only lasts for so long, right? And naturally, it will shift to something else. And we also like variation in the women we encounter because of the fact that we're designed to fuck more women. Like we're designed to impregnate a variety of opportunities.
We're trying to prolong our species,
right? On a subconscious biological level, like we're just biological machines in that regard. And women, on the other hand, like they're designed, like their bodies, their uterine walls, their orgasmic types, their orgasmic styles are designed to encompass multiple sessions over time, right? And that's how they kept the species strong, and that's how they kept, and also how their communities were more closely knit. There was no jealousy. Everybody shared everything. The women who had sex with who they wanted to have sex with. The men had sex with who they wanted to have sex with. There was no, oh, I don't like you. Or even if they didn't, oftentimes there were pacts where you would have everybody was, they were pretty much those orgies. Like everybody would have their partners over time. And he talks to he's got a lot of references in this book. He names like probably 10 different tribes that exist now that still practice this, and also tribes recorded through history from like explorers, and when they offered different they offered a different lifestyle, and when the person would come back, like this tribeman would come back, they would immediately be like, they would throw off everything they learned in the European society and go back to the way they lived when they were supposed to go back and teach what the right civilized way. They were like, well, actually, it turns out this way is better. Like, I'm getting sex all the time. I'm having this so much food, and everybody here loves me, and I love them. It's great.
More of a community.
Right, it's a community. There was always an appeasement. It was all about pleasure, and there was only so much time you actually have to go out and work, right? A lot of time you're spent having fun, talking, or playing with the kids, and everybody's kids was everybody's kids, right? Yeah. So and pretty much, I don't know. I just found this book fascinating, man.
I can buy that, especially the part about male attraction and the way it has a tendency to shift from one woman to the other. I mean, we've all felt that as a man. I mean, you know, even if you are a loyal husband, boyfriend, you know, and you want to be, you love your girlfriend, wife, whatever it may be, you still kind of have that innate attraction to, you know, if you see a beautiful woman, you know she's beautiful.
When your head turns.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
you might go ahead and look.
And it's like, it's there's nothing in it, like, you know.
And it's not bad. It's biological.
Right. Exactly. And I think they've kind of taken it like it's a slight men of dogs and stuff like that, especially American women. You know, I can't really speak much to outside the U.S., but, and it's not. It's just like a natural thing, you know. And that's just evolution over time, you know. I mean, humans have been around for as long as we have been. Then naturally, our sex organs and the way we interact sexually would evolve to better the prolongment of our species, you know. So, which is why you would have a male penis shaped the way that it's shaped, you know, in order to
it's designed like a plunger, they said.
Yeah.
So as it goes in, it sucks out like what's already in there. The sperm that's already in there,
I've heard that.
and it replaces it.
I've heard that.
Right. So.
Well, see, then that's where society comes in, because I'm like, the sperm that's already in there. What am I getting, sloppy seconds or what? Like,
well, that's the thing. Everybody was sharing and look, I'm not saying this is how we need to practice our lives. Man. Like that, the book doesn't make that argument at all. It's like, look, we live in the society we live in. Like, there's no point. Is there any point in trying to go back and live this this prehistorical lifestyle, because first off, the world we live in, it'll push back against you.
Of course,
Second off, is you won't be able to really do it successfully. It's just not. You don't have the structures in place to allow that to happen. So the book doesn't argue for that at all.
So I have a question then regarding, do you agree that more monogamous relationships have a certain level of morality to them? You know what I mean? Is it a moral construct to have one wife or one girlfriend or one husband or one boyfriend?
So me personally speaking,
morality is a construct.
Because if it's not exactly, so like were the people back then less moral?
I think it's more economically safe and also it's more for about prolonging your species. If you have a couple who's monogamous, right? When you have children, because they're always there, right? You can see your children grow. You can ensure their success, their life, their longevity, essentially. Then you got more and more kids, and you make sure that they're going to be alive. The reason why animals have fishes and stuff, or even like frogs, they have hundreds of kids is because they might not all be alive.
Yeah, like five of them are going to make it. Yeah.
So I think that's what it is. Number two is it's also for financial and economic reasons. Like, if you have a bunch of different partners and stuff, but you're only making so much yourself. If you have another person who's in a monogamous relationship, you have a combined income, and that's a little bit easier.
You don't want to squander your money trying to take care of somebody else's. But
financial
as far as
and economic is a construct, just like morality.
Right. So here's the thing.
For now, anyways.
What I say from this book is saying that like a polygyny or horde, what do you call it?
Polygamy?
Like group horde, like sexual styles, where everybody's fucking everybody in the community. Like that whole thing there's no morality there. The moral thing to do in that community
is to have as many partners as
right.
possible.
They practice fierce egalitarianism, is to share everything with everybody. And if you have something that will make somebody else happy, or then it is in a way it is your responsibility to help that person be happy.
So are there societal constructs within that system then? Because what if I don't want to give you what will make you happy? Then what if it's mine? And
here's the thing, as far as I know...
I thought about that. That's interesting. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. So I don't know. I don't know if there's... I don't know if rape was okay. I imagine...
Yeah, right?
Because here's the thing. If it's really based upon making another person happy, you're not going to want to take somebody against their will because that won't make them happy, right? That's not egalitarianism. That's a selfish angle, and those people who are selfish, and that's why outcasting a person is the worst punishment you can do. You outcast a person from your society, that person is essentially dead. There's no survival out there alone. You
can't survive.
That's why it was so important to share everything, right? So I would argue that nobody was raping anybody else. They may have had customs. They may have had practices, right? There was no, I imagine very much so that they didn't have the 18-year-old age limitation where people have sex back then. They just didn't, right? And biologically, we don't show that, right? But we have our constructs. So that's what I would say. It's just a thing.
Right. Well, I can definitely dig that. That's awesome, man. I mean, so all this is happening pre-recorded
history.
And it makes you wonder, too. It's so what did we have before recorded history? How much knowledge don't we have about ourselves, you know?
I know, right?
Not only black people or Asian people, but just the human race in general. You know what I mean? We don't know so much about our own origins than ourselves. As much as we do know, we don't know.
And it's crazy, man.
Absolutely,
in the book, they were talking about that. How much don't we know, and how much do we fill in with just assumption? And they were talking about the Flintstoneization of humanity, right? And that's the idea. So we think about the Flintstones. They were prehistoric people, and yet they lived like your common nuclear family.
By the way, to our listeners out there, I want to make this very clear. Okay, dinosaurs and humans never lived together. Just want to make sure you guys know this out there, because some people still think so.
Hollywood makes it seem like we did. So
yeah,
I'll choose to believe Hollywood, man.
The church will make you think of this. Tell you how much. That's the thing. So even Darwin, down to what was the dude's name? like Hobbes. Was it Hobbes or Locke?
Captain
Anyways, yeah, like even they had definitely they talked about pair bonding a lot, right? And pair bonding, as far as what biology shows, and as far as what we've encountered in dealing with other tribes that are still hunter-gatherer, there are no pair bonds. Pair bonds is not really a useful construct. Pair bond implies monogamy, it implies having one partner, and everything is in the is in support of this pair bond. So they will do their research, their studies from a skewed point of view. And that's one thing we have to be careful of, and that they talked about a lot in this book. It was like you want to be careful of this Flintstoneization of the past to project your common moral values to the moral values 100,000 years ago.
You know what's crazy about that is like if you follow those kind of principles nowadays, you know, in today's world, it'll be looked at as like hedonistic and savage, and you know the fact that people are sharing each other's partners, and there's no
sinners.
So what did that? Like religion, Christianity, Judaism.
In a nutshell, agriculture. Agriculture,
which led to religion, and makes
you
sense.
had to be able to rationalize all these things. Like I'm not saying they didn't have a religion then, but here's one thing we also know about pre-agricultural societies and the common hunter-gatherers now. Their religion isn't religion like we experience Christianity or Islam or any other religion with particular rules you follow, right? Their religion is a appreciation for the world. You always think about the Native Americans, right?
I was just about to say that.
Right? It's a relation to your environment and a respect for it, understanding that it can kill you and yet it feeds you. Like that was just, you go to any hunter-gatherer group, I think it's shamanism. Like it's a relation to nature, and that was their religion, right?
That's weird. You know what? You want real quick? I don't know if you ever even did at the beginning of this. You want to plug the book and the author?
Oh yeah. I talked about it, but it's Sex at Dawn, written by Christopher Hitchens and Casilda Jetha. It's such a good book, people. Like, look, I'm gonna plug the shit out of this book, and I'm probably gonna be talking about it for the next couple of podcasts, just because like this changed my whole worldview.
It's fresh on your mind.
Not that I necessarily like buy everything in this book, or that I thought the complete opposite before.
It's a good perspective,
but it makes you think.
It laid out a lot of things in an order and a easy, definable way for me to reference and for me to make sense of. So.
Yeah, and it made you
check
think.
this book out.
That's what books are supposed to do, really, right? I mean,
Sex at Dawn: the prehistoric origins of modern sexuality.
It's kind of weird. I never thought of agriculture in that way. I just thought agriculture was a way for humans to feed themselves. But I never thought about it kind of being the basis for all society, almost. You know what I mean? Even leading up to our modern day is agriculture. You know, I mean, of course, we need to eat to feed ourselves, but you wouldn't think that we had these kind of community constructs before agriculture made township and community a mainstay. You know, you had community amongst nomad troops, but there was no community where you stayed and grew the same food year after year and kind of
distributed it.
And actually, it's interesting. I was talking to Juce about this also before podcast. We were just chilling, and we're talking about how people in like mountains, like the mountaineers and such, like before major towns, were like, a thing. A lot of the families were by themselves. So you had to be a carpenter, you had to be a doctor, you had to be like a farmer and stuff.
You had to make the things you
had
needed.
to do everything yourself. And obviously money didn't really matter because, well, you just grew what you needed. And like, there's a barter system. If I wanted to go to my closest neighbor and I needed something, I'd exchange for whatever. Yeah. So, and then it wasn't until like towns and cities started to be built that, we started to reduce some of our skills. Now, like, I don't know if I can build a house.
Now, instead of being a carpenter, I can go to the carpenter shop and get whatever I needed built. Yeah,
so commerce, a chair, instead of making a chair,
and money and stuff like that. Currency.
That's just another. That's still another form of agriculture.
Exactly. So I thought that was really interesting.
It's weird. I never thought about agriculture like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely here on the Intelligent Idea Talkers podcast, we try to cover as many topics as possible. New revelation in as short amount of time as possible because we've been having pre and post-cast discussions on how we maybe should shorten it up sometimes. Maybe people don't have the time to sit down and listen to an hour and 48-minute podcast.
Like my editing only takes off about like 3-4 minutes.
Although I dig talking with my co-host here, and I'm down to make a 2.5-hour podcast if these guys want to do it. But I know we have to conform to the audience.
Leave a comment. Leave a comment.
Let us know what you guys
do. You
think.
like long casts or do you like shorter casts?
I think sometimes we can't help but have longer casts because we got a lot to say about this shit.
Yeah,
you know
sure.
what I mean? We're very
on.
opinionated. You know.
So please leave a comment, like and subscribe.
So yeah, I'm gonna run through this little article about that I saw real quick. I guess we can kind of have a mini, not a mini, but a run and gun section.
Let's do it.
Has Donald Trump done anything in the recent weeks that we want to mention? You guys want to talk about?
Tried to kill healthcare.
Yeah,
I feel like he's always doing
population.
I feel like he's always
Oh
doing.
man, every day my aunt has a countdown.
It's
every
not just
day,
him.
Every day she posts something that Donald Trump has done. So she's like right now she's on a day like what 50, like day 54 or some shit. Like some new shit he came out. She's like day 88.
I don't even know if it's just him. I think probably Republicans have had a plan for that. I mean, they couldn't wait for Obama to get out of office, man.
True.
Damn, anybody who gets in there, we're going to try to get rid of
They're
this.
going to go forward with the whole pipeline thing and
Capitalism at its finest, man. We are a society where our governmental policies are influenced by corporate agendas, and we are like, the common people, the mass of people just don't really, we're not the main focus of our governmental policies.
Did you hear about how Obama was wiretapping Donald Trump and stuff?
Yeah.
You guys hear about that?
I don't think I did.
I heard about that.
I only heard about it. I didn't read too much into it. I'm like, all right.
So here's the thing. So here's what I heard is that the president doesn't initiate wiretaps, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the Department of Justice initiates wiretaps. And if the Trump administration of the Trump Tower was being wiretapped,
mm-hmm.
that means that the Department of Justice had a reason to wiretap Trump. That's what I heard, right?
That makes sense. So,
it's like so
everybody's
everybody's
looking
looking
at
at
random guy,
right. So Trump's whole thing is like, well, that makes everybody double take. Like, well, what the fuck was you doing, Trump, that you needed to be wiretapped by the Department of Justice?
Russia?
Not Obama.
Russia?
Exactly. You wonder, right? It makes you wonder. So that's what I heard about it. Like,
okay, no, that makes sense because I didn't know. I obviously didn't assume that they could wiretap anyone for like without a reasonable cause.
Right.
But
exactly, you need a cause or reason. Purpose.
Government is too big, and you'd have to imagine Donald Trump has so many enemies. I mean, as many people who are supporting Trump and the agenda that he's working for.
Anyone in the spotlight has enemies, though.
I feel like
but
anyone
Trump.
Trump has stiffed in the past.
I mean,
is
even
enemy,
Democrats,
which is a lot of
businessmen.
people.
I mean, yeah, it's just people out for him. You'd have to even think foreign dignitaries and businessmen, and just he probably stepped on a lot of people. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah. So, Trump, university people.
Oh my God, yeah, dude.
We had to touch on Donald Trump at least once during the Intelligent Idea Talkers podcast, episode 17.
I'm not putting his image in the.
All right, so
the cover. I'm not gonna put a Trump picture in the cover. I'm just not doing it.
Real quick before I start this, like, Jay, have you ever been a church-going person? Do you have any religious affiliation background?
A little quick background. I grew up in the Christian church. I didn't step out of it until I was in early 20s. So
probably about the same for me. 17, 18. Yeah.
I was deep in.
I know Juce was. That's why I was asking. That's why I was asking Jay.
No, I was deep in. I was probably deeper in than you. I was leading youth groups.
Yeah,
I was just going through like lessons.
I was
like,
going to church on Tuesdays or Wednesday nights.
I used to go door to door and preach to people, son.
Mm-hmm.
This, in the beginning of my freshman year, I was handing out pamphlets and tracts at George Mason.
Oh my Lord, not on campus.
So I was, I think I was like 20 or something, and I was just boom.
I feel you, man.
I was one of those guys.
Like, dude, the worst, because I grew up Joe's with it. So the worst thing was if you were going door to door.
You got the bikes still? You got the bikes?
No, that's the Mormons.
You're
eternal rivals.
You're right. They're rivals.
But no, like the worst thing is if you go door to door and you knock on the door, and somebody from school answer that,
Hey,
you were like,
you in third period?
Daniel? Like,
I was just making sure you had your homework. I'm gonna see you later.
I said, all right, man.
Hey,
So you want to distract or what?
All right, so go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, so yeah, I mean, and me myself, I definitely grew up in the church. Was going to Bible school every Sunday for years and years. I mean, we were going to church on Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights. Had this thing called Bible days in the summer where we went for 3 weeks and 5 days a week, 5 hours a day. Where we had to go and do church activities. We're going hiking with the church group and pastors and all that stuff. I preached at church before. I led like youth sermons and stuff like that. It's crazy. But there's an article on the Atlanta Black Star that says it gives 6 reasons why young black people are leaving the church. And I read through it as I was telling these my co-hosts before the cast. I think it applies to all people, not really just the reasons why black people are leaving the church. I think it's just a different day and age that we're living in.
But black people are known for being particularly
religious.
Maybe that has
something
something
religious with the church.
maybe that has something to do with our indoctrination into slavery, and kind of maybe down through the generations we've just become used to relying on a higher power that everything will be okay. A hope. There's a sense of hope that religion gives you that we just so used to leaning on. But I think anybody can be religious.
Sure.
But the first reason they give that people, I'm going to say 6 reasons why people are leaving the church. Okay. The title of the article is Young Black People. First reason is the church appears to be old and stagnant. And I'll just read a little clip from it says the church continues to alienate young people with old, stagnant ideas that young people don't view as innovative enough to keep up with their lives in the digital age. And I think we can all agree to that, right? I mean, you go to church and they tell you a Bible story about how Samson pulled down the pillars of the temple he was in to crush all the Romans, and it's like, did he really? Because scientific fact, is like, if I'm thinking in a science frame of mind, that's not humanly possible for him to do that. You know what I mean? So it's like they kind of recycle old ideas.
Use logic.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not use logic in this innovative age that we're living in?
My whole thing is Jesus walking on water. You have to literally believe in magic.
Right? Like, what else can it be?
That's fine if you do, but then they'll say it's not magic.
And I know a lot of my views will be more focused on
a waterbender. It'll
be more focused on the Christian side of everything, because I grew up as a Baptist in the Christian church. But I would imagine they have similar stories for all religions.
Yeah, they do.
Like when Moses parted the Red Sea. What was that? You know what I mean? Like, did he part the Red Sea? Because he'd have to be a waterbender.
Also waterbender.
Not Moses, but God.
So I have no problem with religion. And, like, I have friends who are religious. Like, I have no problem with that. As long as you guys are preaching stuff to me, I'm okay. Though I will say, though, the one thing that kind of annoys me about religion and social media in the digital age, when you have people posting up like a picture of like some cancer-stricken patient like this, for every like it's a prayer, for every share it's a whatever, that bothers me a little bit. I'm like, what are you trying to do? Like, or those who are more about prayer versus about medicine or about action. Right, Like, how many times has people been in the news because their children have died because they just prayed versus like
prayer?
Like, but even still, that goes outside of like just church stuff. That goes for people who can believe almost anything.
Yeah, so it's really like degree of naivety. Like that kind of just makes me a little uneasy.
I would say there's a degree of naivety with a lot of people, because people, in my opinion, I think that people want to believe in some form of spirituality or some form of higher power, some form that this universe is not all there is. Because otherwise, you're just dealing with only things that are tangible.
But can we help that though?
And I think what Dee was saying was right. Like that level of hope. You want to have some kind of hope, right? And I think that the reason why religion was so prevalent, was so huge back in the day, is because we didn't have much understanding about the world around us. We wanted to fill in the gaps. We wanted to fill in, not assume, but if we had God doing these things, we had God, rising the sun every morning.
Gave a lot of explanations for why things happen.
Right. And also it that level of hope, know that it's not you failing, but it's God's plan, or that's why bad things happen. It's not because people are shitty, but because it's part of the divine plan.
Now we have scientific logic to
actually explain it for real.
To actually explain these things, like the Great Flood. Was it a tsunami? You know what I mean? Like, it's just questions like that come in, which leads to number 2. Okay, young evangelicals feel that they have to choose between their intellectual integrity and their faith. Millennials long for faith communities in which they are safe, asking tough questions and wrestling with doubt. Up to 1/3 of young people say the church is out of step on scientific developments and debate.
I think that
Just we were just talking about, like,
I think that there is
you can explain these miracles through science.
There's a group of religious people who will discard science in place for their belief. So I watched it's dangerous and it's foolish. So I recently watched this. It was on YouTube. It was a video where Bill Nye had went to the Christian Museum.
I didn't realize Bill Nye was regarded as such an intellectual.
Turns out he's a scientist.
But I remember seeing Bill Nye the Science Guy on the TV show back in the day.
With the giant rat.
Bill Nye. Yeah.
But he knows shit now, and now he's like he's able to.
I feel like he's been known stuff, but just like we were just dumb.
But because he wants to teach it, right? Mm-hmm. And he wanted a way to reach out. But anyway, so I saw Bill Nye, and he went to the Christian Science Museum, and this museum is in the form of the Ark. Right? They built the Ark, and they have throughout the whole thing, they're talking about how the planet is only 4,000, 5,000 years old, you know, and how humanity was, you know, the Bible stuff, like Adam and Eve and all this stuff, and they try to explain it scientifically, and Bill Nye goes through that job, and he picks this whole thing apart.
On YouTube?
Yes,
I'm about to watch this.
Dude, he picks everything apart, and yet, while we would look at these things, Bill Nye saying these things, and we're like, oh, well, yeah, that only makes sense. Evolution, time,
adaptation,
everything we're talking about from the book,
agriculture,
the universe, matter, all these things. We would say like, oh, that makes sense, and yet there's another guy there, Ken Ham, and he's supposed to be you know Ken Ham? Yeah, Ken Ham is this
created the museum.
He created the museum, so he's there, and this whole time, he's trying to knock down every fact that Bill Nye's throwing out. It was like, well, you don't know because the Bible, because of my faith in the Lord says, and all these things.
It's a circular argument.
Exactly, and he keeps going back. And Bill Nye, you see Bill Nye, like his eyes are just.
He's so patient, though.
He's so patient, dude. Like,
but how do you?
Anything so benevolent than Bill Nye's patience? I know not of it. Like,
and that's why I like this article, because religion is so important. I mean, how do you change somebody's beliefs? Even politically, religiously.
If it's a belief, it doesn't need any support.
Exactly. Like, this is what I believe. And I know something about that because I've been called an asshole and hard-headed and all that. So, so definitely, number 3.
Yo.
All right, look, number 3. Run and gun, okay?
All right.
Disagreement with the passages in the Bible on slavery and genocide is the third reason they give. So, young people are now waking up to the fact that Christianity in the Bible, and maybe a lot of other religions as well, were used as a tool to control their ancestors, and that's not a narrative that they want to be a part of.
Absolutely, because again,
if
you go back even just in like 100 years, right, where like Catholicism was huge, right, like the people who couldn't read, they had to depend on like the priest, and guess what? The priests were tax exempt. They can also impose taxes, tithe, and all that stuff, right? Where they collect money. They're making tons of money.
Not to mention execution.
It's the reason he's walking out with gold rings on. You know what I mean? Like this.
Like the whole Scarlet Letter thing.
A gold ring.
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness. So it is about power, but at the same time, though, like what I just personally dislike from any religion is those who pick and choose what they want to carry out. Like, oh man, like homosexuality is a sin. But so is eating shellfish. So is working on the Sabbath.
And so wearing mixed linens or mixed cloths. This is like
exactly.
Polyester, get out of here. That's a sin.
It makes you wonder how a lot of people who are overly religious, how well do they actually know this book that they believe so wholeheartedly?
There's a study that says that atheists actually have read more like in depth Bible verses or even the Bible in its entirety than most Christians have. And I personally have read the Bible about 6 times.
But you know what? Like, even as far as with slavery and the use of that to control slave populations, not just African Americans, but throughout history.
Of course.
It makes you wonder also how much the actual slave owners believed what they were saying as well. So, I mean, is it their fault? They know as much about scientific.
If you feel justified in something,
they felt like they were justified.
It is easy to do it.
Right.
All right, number 4 on the list is 4 reasons for out of 6 young people are leaving the church is sex. is number 4 on the list.
Our biological urges are too damn much.
Young people want to be challenged to live a life of holiness, not only when it comes to sex, but also when it comes to living simply, caring for the poor and oppressed, pursuing reconciliation, engaging in creation of care, and becoming peacemakers. And definitely, if you have sex in the church and it leaks out, you're vilified and excommunicated, and
right, you're outcast because of sex,
so
which is the most basic human function.
It's
Here's the thing:
How can
it's
you
the
fight
biological
against
function. But even more than other animals in the world, sex is an innately. It was not innately, but sex is one of the most representative things that humanity does. It's like create technology and have sex for the sake of having sex. Sex for pleasure, right? Most animals, like 99% of animals on this world, only have sex during times where it's for mating or when it's a particular time, right, where reproduction is better. Like, animals are in heat. But most animals, and it's like, and they're primates, right, or maybe dolphins.
Primates, dolphins,
Right.
pleasure.
Like, they do it for pleasure anytime that the feeling hits them, and we derive health from it, and we derive satisfaction and happiness from it.
Serotonin, dopamine.
That's biology, but the Bible will also say that's a sin. So in a way, the Bible puts you in a position.
Contradiction.
Right, it's a direct contradiction to our biology, which
Against
can be
human
proven.
nature.
It's science again versus faith, right?
It's crazy, man.
Like, you can prove these things.
All right, wait. So, man, did I skip one? I said that was number 4. Actually, this is the last one. I guess that was number 5.
Well, 5 out of 5. Okay. Then.
Yeah, 5 out of 5.
Let's do
Wait,
this.
I have. They are tired of pretending.
Okay, yeah, that's it. They're tired of pretending.
And that's the last one.
Some segments of Christianity suggest that being a Christian removes all struggle from life, but that message rings hollow for many kids who try to serve God and continue to face difficult challenges, or who see their parents teach a similar message while succumbing to anger and depression themselves. Many youth feel that Christianity leaves no room for authenticity, which is totally true. I mean, how many of us have known that overly religious person that just can't stop talking about inviting you to church and coming? It's like, drop the act and be a real person for once.
It's also,
you know what I mean?
it's also
like,
group,
exactly.
it's also
Are you
group
depressed?
mentality.
No,
Group
yeah.
mentality, because like if you're
True.
like, say you grew up in a Christian family and you're the only one who doesn't believe or you have questions, like, you don't want to cause drama, you don't want to be exiled or like get in trouble or anything, right? Same thing if you belong to a community who is very religious, or even just a religious school, like a Catholic, school or something, right? Like, you don't want to stick out. What if you get bullied and stuff, which is ironic. But again, it's just like that struggle, that internal struggle.
It is.
So,
And I mean, and it's in direct contradiction to what the church teaches, Yeah, I guess we all know that person who's just overly religious.
If people just follow the aspect of spreading love, I don't think we should have wars based on religion.
Basic caring for humanity and compassion
Just be a
for other
decent human
people.
being.
Like, that's it. You know what I mean?
It's more
Morality.
important
That
than
is it.
religion.
That is
it's
it.
more important than the religion. Just be a decent human.
I mean, most people argue
Our
if
biology dictates it. That's what
the Bible teaches acceptance for people, and God will accept you into His fold. And again, I'm skewing my thoughts more towards Christianity because that's what I grew up in.
Sure.
But it teaches it'll bring you into the fold and make you a part of, whatever we're doing here. Only if you conform to this certain way of thinking and these certain rules that we adhere to. If you don't, peace out. You can get out. You know what I mean? So it's like it's a direct contradiction in itself almost. And we've all felt the sting of, having logic interfere with what we're taught to believe religiously. I know you have, Juice, and that's why I was asking Jay before this article. I know I have, man.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's crazy. I remember in church once I asked this guy. I went to, I think it was like a Wednesday night church, and I asked him, back during Adam and Eve, and when Earth was getting populated, where were the dinosaurs? Like, because we're taught that that's the beginning of time, right? So they're not teaching you that's the beginning of recorded Christian history. Is that the beginning of recorded human history? That's what I ask now. But where were the dinosaurs? Where do the dinosaurs factor into the Bible teachings? And he gave me some answer about how the Bible teaches. I don't even remember what he said. Because it wasn't a straight up answer.
Dude, they'll go as
I'm
far
like,
as
you
saying-
can't answer that.
For me, I had more like astronomy stuff where I was like, look, if Earth or mankind is the center of the universe, right? Like, there are planets, there are stars that are beyond our vision that we can't even see, that we haven't even discovered yet. What is the point of even having them then? Like, if we can't even see them, they're supposed to be part of our, like,
right.
you know, amusement or enjoyment. Why can't, like...
And yet
what's the
they're
purpose?
Not within our realm for to conceive or to view.
Yeah,
right?
so a lot of these things, and, like, actually, for me, just sharing a little bit about my past, like, I had all these questions, and I was like, I should document these. These are good questions. So I started writing them down, and I ended up with something like 2 or 3 pages of questions, and I brought it up, and I was like, hey, like, what do you guys think about this? And then eventually, they stopped asking me to teach. And then I had more questions, and then eventually, they were just like, hey, you know, I think you should probably just, like, not come anymore. And I was like, all right, that's fine.
Jesus.
But, I mean...
So my whole thing was, like, where did God come from, right? So... Like, I believed it, like, 100%. Like, when I was growing up, I was like, I'm all in. But
God,
I always
or the Judeo-Christian God, or deity?
That was, no,
deity.
God. Like, what that's what my conception was. My religion, like, Jesus was the son of God, right? Mm-hmm. And Jesus came through from some spiritual realm. But I'm like, I always tried to conceptualize, how was it before God created Earth and humanity, right? Like, I was like, either God created other planets before our planet and they either failed, or God was just out there doing nothing. But my whole thing was, where did God come from? What was God doing before us? What was and I was just told, like, look, just faith, like, it doesn't matter, right? That was the answer I get. It doesn't matter what God was doing before us.
All perfectly valid questions.
Everything was perfect, right? Everything is the way it's supposed to be. You don't need to worry about that. It's not your business, right? That's what I got. Mm-hmm. And and then of course those lead to, like Jay was saying, those would lead to other questions, right? Mm-hmm. The whole time, and you just grow. Then you just, like, start seeing the shit. Like, the answers were never satisfactory when you ask the real existential ones.
Exactly. Like, they always just tell you faith,
just
believe.
A straw man argument, or is a circular case.
Right.
Yeah.
Faith.
Oh, you need to go back and read the Bible. Like, I hate that one. Mm-hmm. Go back and read the Bible. Or go back, like, I'm like, where? Which part of it? It's a big-ass book. You want to be more specific?
And based upon that, like, the way we think now is, like, you can see how, you know, I think it was number 3 or 4 on this list, like, how... back in the day, you know, centuries ago, how they used religion to enslave people's minds and to keep people, to have order, like social order came through religion when it couldn't come through government, you know, and even government was influenced by religion, you know, and like now it's almost flipped on its head, you know, our government is influenced by finance, really. I mean, you know, you might have a religious financier, you know, religious people in government, but it's just business is how much of it do you really think is influenced from religion now? You know, I don't know myself, but
I mean,
it's like there's so many questions you have.
Nothing with the Republicans. They'll say, I mean, not that like a little answer is needed, but like they'll say, oh, well, man is supposed to do this. Children or children exist or life exists at the point of conception. Or God wouldn't like this, or God wouldn't like that, or these people are sinners, and then they'll try to like push those into our worldview, and then you hit them with the actual, oh well, what about caring for the poor? What about helping people who are sick? And then they'll be like, oh well, they need to provide for themselves, they need to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps, and then you're just like, well, then you're not really practicing what you're supposedly preaching, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of it is just a shill.
I mean, like, man, I hate to keep bashing religion and stuff, but like, right? It's just.
Let's say something nice about you.
But it is such a tool of control. It is. It is. You can't deny it. And it's like, you know, when they're saying, you know, people are tired of pretending. It's like, how can anybody who's involved in religious institutions and believe wholeheartedly in it, how can they argue these points? You know, like Jay was saying, it's just going to be a circular argument. They'll always come back to the same thing. Well, you know, have faith, believe,
and they're going to continue to cite the Bible,
trust in the Bible, trust in God's word. You know,
and when they say,
but the Bible is how old? You know what I'm saying? Like,
and then they say the Bible says that it's the true word of God. I'm like, well, wait a minute. That's like me saying I'm the true word of God.
So how do you have an Old Testament and a New Testament? This is what I always thought. Like, if there's one book, who wrote it? You know what I mean? Who wrote? Why is there multiple people? Why does on the front of the Bible says
that's not even all of the books,
the revised version of the New Testament? You know, who revised it?
If it was already perfect, why got to revise it?
Exactly. What am I? This is the word of God.
And how do we know that this is the perfect religion? Why is it not something else?
We did it wasn't like the we got the Bible, even though it was written all these people. We didn't get it in a book. Mm-hmm. There were scrolls scattered, and then they were in different religions.
They're in Greek. They were in
There were
Hebrew,
different
Aramaic.
languages, and then all of a sudden they're together and like, well, this is the word of God, and they hand you a single book, and it doesn't even have all those other scrolls or all those other like texts that were out there. They're just not everything, and yet they say, oh, well, this is the Bible. Like, take
Also,
my word
think
for
about
it.
translation. Like certain words, like for example, the Greek word for worship is proskonos, right? What do you think worship means? I mean, for me, like when I first
login,
when I first heard of the word worship, I just thought it was like praying or something, right? Because I mean, like worshiping,
communing with God,
right? So proskonos actually means come forth and kiss. Come forth and embrace. So that's a much more passionate, intimate like relationship.
Right.
So when you have
More
someone who is
thing.
worshiping God, it's much more of an intimate relationship.
You can't come forth and kiss God, but
Exactly.
in the way they teach who He is.
So, but it's much more. It's very intimate. So it's kind of sweet actually. But when you translate that from Greek to English, well, the modern day English, not old English, you know what I'm saying? A lot of that meaning, a lot of that this depth is lost. So also even the term like, love, like there's eros, agape, and all this other stuff, right? Yeah, right, exactly. So like when you're talking about these things, when you're translating into how many versions, how many like revisions, like a lot of it's lost. So then when we use the Bible to start, like translating what these laws mean or trying to inflict like these regulations or impose these regulations on people, like that's kind of lost. That's a moot point, man.
Right, it's a moot point.
And that's why this article hit me, because I knew we would all have ideas and thoughts on this, because
Pushing my buttons today.
This is,
yeah.
I know, right? This is an intelligent
we
idea.
all dealt with
talkers.
religion
Approach it.
versus logic, and it's just we try to talk a lot of logic and the way the religion correlates to the world we live in today. It's like Juce was saying, like Jesus came to earth and He was the Son of God, and for me it's like trying to visualize what does God look like, because you're always given a picture of Jesus, like what does God look like?
dope.
You know what I mean?
God, dope.
I mean, does God have a color? Does He have it? Because to me, it makes sense that
he's a white dude with blonde hair and blue eyes.
How can he have
That's
a
what
color
I see
if
on the pictures?
Yeah.
How can
Never
he have
mind that he's from Egypt.
How can he have a color and be all knowing? And if He made
Everything.
black people and He made Asians and He made like
Cats and dogs and frogs and lizards and
how
everything.
did He choose what
Why
the
would you make
hierarchical
those
order of animals and humans and everything would be? Like, how did He know? All right, well, I'm gonna make frogs and they're gonna be this thing, and I'm gonna make humans and they're gonna be at the total opposite end. And
Kool-Aid.
yeah, it's like perfect. He was just picking stuff. Yeah, I guess they're cool.
It's just the whole history like bothers me. Like for example, let me know if you know this, this God's name or this deity's name. So he has 12 brothers. He was born of a virgin, right? So what's his name? It's not Jesus. It's also Horus. It's also Horo. Yeah. Like this, how many gods before have had the same like 12 like brothers or 12 followers or 12 disciples? How many of them were born of virgins? Who was the first guy that was
resurrected? Right.
No, like there's so many. Like so, I mean, I hate to keep bashing this, but like I believe that we are all atheists to a certain extent. Like there's a great argument that says that there's something like 3,000 religions out there, deities and so on, right? An atheist, a proclaimed atheist, only believes one more less God than a Christian.
A need to explain the unknown.
So a Christian believes in one God, but there's 3,000 religions out there. As an atheist, I believe in one less God than a Christian.
Okay.
Because how come? Because if you're a Christian, how come you don't believe in like Thor? How come you don't believe in Valhalla?
That's right. Because every religious person believes in their particular God.
Right. So they all believe in one God. But as an atheist, I discredit all 3,000 of them.
Right, all at once.
So I believe that,
one less.
In theory, we all are atheists. Atheists just believe in one less God than you.
I can buy that.
I wonder if you can believe in all the guys.
Sure, and there are religions that do believe in all spirituality. They believe in spirituality, and that's distinct from religion.
So that's me, right? So I'm not religious, but I'm also not of the mindset where there's nothing supernatural around this world, right? So that's what I try to get through to my parents often. It's like they're like, "Oh, you try to
that is a distinction. I do believe there's a distinction.
If you try to conceptualize the vastness of space itself,
time,
and
dimension,
there's no way you can't believe that there's a higher force. I mean, because
I like that.
It's just bigger than us. You know what I mean? It doesn't stop with the human race. Right. We are a small speck in the vastness of the universe, you know.
Right.
So there has to be something more, you know. But
Cthulhu.
I was watching this guy named Jordan Maxwell. He brought up Horus. Jay brought up Horus, and this guy named Jordan Maxwell, and he was drawing all these similarities from Egyptian religions and about God and the sun god, and we worship the sun. The sun comes up in the morning, and how the sun sets at night, and just he was making all these relations between, you know, Christianity, Judaism, and ancient Egyptian religions. You know what I mean? And it was just stunning. I'm like, if this is all true, this is nothing but an interpretation of an ancient Egyptian religion. You know,
the next book. It's
like, if this is true, what I mean, yeah, we got to bring somebody on the podcast who's overly religious, who just believes and.
You try to lose one more subscriber.
Oh,
right.
We have 4.
That'll be a pummeling.
Now it's down to 3.
If there's anything that people are going to fight over, it's politics and religion.
Hell yeah.
Think about all the wars that we still have going on because of religion, because of like their interpretations. Think about all the different sects of religion. If we're all Christian, why is there Baptist? Why is there whatever
Mormon? Why
That's
are
one thing
there...
that scares me, right? So one of my biggest fears, and I think I've said this before in the cast, maybe a long time ago, but my biggest fear about Christianity is that their destiny, their culmination with Christianity is Armageddon. If Armageddon doesn't happen, then all of this is for naught, right? Which means that their destiny, what they desire, in the end, as a part of God's plan,
total destruction.
Is total destruction. Yeah, like total
new beginning, right?
And a new beginning after that. I'm good without Armageddon, right?
You can hold Armageddon over there for
just keep Armageddon back.
Armageddon's
We're
cool.
good, right?
Like if Armageddon knocked on your door right now, we wouldn't even open the door. You know what I mean? You cool, Armageddon.
You look at the people up like, oh shit, it's Armageddon.
It's Armageddon right there. Shit.
God damn.
Be quiet. You got the money. It's Armageddon.
Turn the lights off.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Armageddon can stay outside.
Exactly, yo. But that's the whole thing. Like they set their premise for the whole world view on, right? So then you look at people who deny climate change, and then you look at so the same people deny climate change are not the same people, but very similar along the lines are the people who have a Christian museum and won't recognize climate change over time that's man-made, right? So those same people, and then at the end they're like, well, if the world is destroyed, I mean, man, it's okay. It doesn't matter to them because in the end they're okay with that. They want that.
If climate change brought about the actual destruction of the earth and the human race, and would they be right? Would Christians and everybody who believe in Armageddon be right?
Let's take it another step.
In a way, the Ice Age was Armageddon. Let's take it another step. Armageddon.
So with climate change, let's take it another step. So with climate change, right? There's obviously a majority of us, right, that believe in it. There's a part.
How could you not?
So there's a part of the population that doesn't. Okay, that's fine. Let's take it another step. Then, okay, for religious people, dying is still very scary. But if you believe in a heaven, if you believe in like the New Jerusalem, if you believe in Valhalla and this eternal peace, why are you so scared of death?
Exactly.
If I know I'm gonna have 72 virgins like waiting for me, if I know I'm gonna have like the eternal like bliss of like sunshine and paradise and stuff,
might be 72 raisins.
I look forward to that then, right? Why is that still a taboo then?
The end of all disease,
dude. Because those 72 virgins might be 72 raisins. I'm just saying.
It's crazy.
Needs to be like, well, what the fuck?
I knew we were going to have a lot to say about this, because especially Juce, because I know how Juce grew up with the...
Dealing stirred the hornet's nest and shit.
I know how Juce grew up with his religious background. And, yeah, man, definitely. It's how can you argue against logic and scientific
reasoning?
The
thing. Let me go and say this about Christianity and religion in general. If you find peace in this, and if it helps you along your way,
absolutely,
definitely,
then please.
And I do believe that I do believe
just don't
religion.
Make policy decisions.
Policy decisions, exactly. I do believe that religion does play a part. It gives people hope. They do a lot of great things within the communities. If you look at a lot of the charitable organizations, nonprofit organizations, there are a lot of religious ties to them, and I believe that is a good thing. Soup kitchens,
the only real religious people I feel are the people who do, or the religious groups that do vast amounts of charity. Those are the only ones I would deem anywhere near a true religion. If you're just saying you believe this and that, and then you go to church, and then you go home, and then you hoard your money,
or truly believing.
Don't be a lunch table Christian. Don't
Right.
just talk about it but not do anything.
'Cause
Remember,
I'll
hands
say
that
to your
help
face, you're
are
not a
far
true
better
Christian.
than lips that pray.
Have compassion for people
So,
who
if
are.
you see poor people and you turn your back, or if you walk by a homeless person and you don't drop $1 or something, like it doesn't matter what they're doing or what, because that's the one thing I always say. People always say, "Oh, these homeless people are just scamming you." Well, you could like to believe that if you want to, but you fucking don't know, honestly. But here's
Who
the
are
thing.
you to judge?
Right?
You know?
And who the fuck is you to judge? You don't know their situation. But even still, if you're a true Christian, drop $1. Like, don't just walk by them. Don't just turn your face. Give them a parachute. Do something Christian. Right? That's my only
It's all
thing.
about
Then
invite them to
then
church.
in
It's all
my
about
eyes,
brotherly
Trying to lift
love,
them
you
up.
know?
yeah. Then in my eyes, you're a true Christian. Because if you don't do that, then you're not.
And honestly, that goes beyond even religion or Christianity, because that's just a human, compassionate thing to do. You know what I mean? That goes back to
Exactly.
ethics.
And you
morals.
don't have to have religion to be moral.
Which
You
they
don't
would
have
love to
have it
argue
have
with you.
ethics.
It's a great way to end off this episode.
Yeah.
Man. You don't have to have religion to be moral. Even though if you are religious and that's your bag, I totally support you.
All
You know,
for you,
as long as
man.
you find happiness and peace, like you said in that, then that's
Just
what
do
it
the
is.
right things.
But
look out for your fellow man.
also, just don't try to deny scientific reasoning. Okay, like if we can break something down to a proton or a freaking electron now, you can't deny things like climate change. Okay, it's science. You know what I mean? Look at the world around you. Why are winters so mild now? You always had the idea of a snowy Christmas. You know, it was a white Christmas. You know,
You ain't seen a snowy Christmas.
you ain't seen a snowy Christmas in 15 years now.
Yeah.
You know, so
gotta mean
it's
something.
real, people. Just
Yeah.
I hate when people try to lean on religious reasoning to deny scientific reasoning now, because it's just like, if there's any religion that human beings should have, it should be science, right? Is science moral?
No.
Science have morality?
No.
No. But it's the truth of nature, right?
If the recorded, testable truth of nature, yes.
Would you be a
If you
science...
can test it and you can draw the same conclusions, then and then everybody can back it up, and other people can test it, and it still remains true, and you're able to repeat it multiple times, then it's a fact, and you should acknowledge it.
Listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson the other night. Same thing, you know? Like, it's like, I love that dude, man. That
Yeah,
dude's
me
cool.
too, yeah.
Hypothetical, real quick before we end off. If they had a religion, started up a new religion, and it was you were a Scientian or something, you know, instead of a Christian, or would you be a part of that religion? Would you be willing to be down with that religion where you worshipped science, like scientific fact, scientific studies? Do you think you could ever be a part of that? This is the
I feel like
hypothetical.
I'm part of that now.
Yeah.
Like I'm not. I don't worship like fucking science, and I believe that there are things that science can't explain. And there's a lot of things that are still theory that we skew towards, right? We skew towards those things because they end up making sense.
But we're getting
but
closer
we
and
just
closer
can't.
to understanding.
Right.
them.
If we haven't been able to prove them repeatedly yet, then we're working on doing that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to me that's far better than just saying a book had it right the first time, right? So I'm always skewed towards those, and yeah, and that's just me.
Definitely, man.
But
Me
I
too.
definitely believe there's things science can explain, and
has explained, does explain, and you know, it's just you can't deny it. I just don't see that if there's any universal truth, I don't see it coming from books like the revised King James version of the Bible or
what does
the
that
Quran.
say about the fourth
or,
dimension? You know?
Yeah, it's weird, man. It's like, okay, now don't take us into the fourth dimension, Juice. We're trying to end this shit off. Man.
We talk about the ant.
We're gonna be here on Tuesday, yo.
Oh, shit. Went to the next dimension.
I can put shit up there.
Wow. All right, man.
Neil
Well,
deGrasse Tyson.
I guess that's going to end us off. Episode 17.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts, guys?
I'm just gonna say we almost did okay, but we didn't.
What's the length of this one? What's
It was
the
hour 52.
Dang, yo.
Look, but I want to say though, real talk to all
Jay warned us at an hour
You
7.
did, yo. He was like, "I was 7, guys. Wrap it up."
to all the viewers out there though,
Wow.
like again, like we just spread we just want people to think. This is the
Yeah.
intelligent idea, Talkers podcast. We just want to have conversations. We really just want to talk. We want to get you guys thinking about these things.
We're not here to judge you.
We're not here to judge, and like we all have our own opinions and biases, but really we just want to have the conversation. That's what it is.
That's what it is. Just conversation.
Exactly. We just want to have conversations, and we don't really bash religion. We don't we have our own opinions. We have our own experiences, but again, it's just to have people thinking, and that's really what it is.
I think we need to work harder, especially coming up in the next couple of months, to try to have maybe another guest or two. Sorry, Jay, on the podcast. Just try to diversify the conversation pool.
Yeah.
And just maybe add a few more opinions to the Intelligent Idea Talkers podcast. So definitely, comment, like, subscribe. Much love, people. SoundCloud, YouTube, Instagram. If we ever get the password back.
Yeah, I'm just gonna make a new one. It's all good.
But hey, definitely. And I was giving you props for all the cover art you do for these episodes too, man. It really, and maybe I understand them a little bit more because I was a part of the conversation, but they always clearly explain exactly what we were talking about. You know what I mean? So like, I look at the cover art, I'm like, well, I understand what it's about. So it's probably because I was conversing with you two guys and we talked about it. But definitely, man. All right, so guess it's gonna take us out. Once again, I'm your host D.
This is Juice.
This is Jay.
Yeah. We'll be back.
Peace.